Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Amar Elm, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Galen Bingham, founder and CEO of Kiln Global Coaching and Consulting, a globally renowned executive coach known as the Leadership Strategist. With more than 3 decades of Fortune 500 leadership experience and coaching experience, Galen helps senior executives and nonprofit leaders transform their leadership capabilities through science-based emotional intelligence, accountability, and sustainable excellence. He's also a best-selling author and award-winning podcast host. Galen, welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you so much. I can't wait to get into this conversation.
I'm super excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take me back to before you started your coaching company. What were you doing beforehand? And then what really motivated you to step into this space?
Yeah. So I usually like to begin this part of the conversation by saying I'm actually not supposed to be here. I'm actually supposed to be the senior vice president of sales for a Fortune 500 company. That's
Okay.
literally what everything was for. That's what moving every 2 years was for. That's what business school was for. Trying to become senior vice president of sales. I spent 5.5 years at Kraft Foods in pursuit of that dream. Ultimately, 22 years at Coca-Cola North America in pursuit of that dream. 5 years at the Imperial Sugar Company in pursuit of that dream. Funny thing happened on the way to the corner office when I was at Coca-Cola. We had a really, really good year. My team ended up being number one in the country for units sold, number two in the country for profit generating, and we were inducted into the President's Club for the Coca-Cola North America. 3 months later, the company went through a restructure and said, "Galen, there's no place for you in this organization. Thank you for playing." And yeah, I didn't know what better would have looked like. And they said that, we recognize that you seem to have this passion for developing people, seem to be pretty good at it. We'd like to give you the central third of the United States for the food service division. Your job would be to figure out what everyone's doing and how to help them get better at whatever it is they're doing, whether they're in marketing, operations, sales, whatever the case is. You do that for 18 months, and then you come back out and you're back on track to be senior VP of sales. I thought that sounded a whole lot better than unemployment, so I said yes. The central third of the United States turned into the entire United States. The entire United States turned into projects in London, projects in Mexico, projects in Canada. That turned
Wow.
into the company loaning me out as an asset to help some of their top clients with leadership development. And when all of this was over, I'd spent 8.5 years in my 18-month assignment, and I was no longer interested in being king myself.
Hmm.
Today, I've got clients across 7 countries, and I coach senior executives, CEOs, founders. Never became senior vice president of sales, but I think I'm having a larger impact today.
1000%. I love that. Was it, I'm curious, I'm a very mindset oriented individual, identity oriented individual. What was that like? The shift in identity from you had this path that you had your, eyes set on for a long, long time, but then life had its own plans. God has his own plans. So for you, what was that like going through that transition?
That was a bit of a transition, and I jokingly say often I was very clear when I told God what I wanted, and God had other plans. Yeah, it was an identity shift. One of the things that I identified in my first people leadership role, I identified that I can either do this the hard way, which means every time there's a big customer program or contract that we've got to sell, I can go in as Superman and make the sell.
Mm,
Or I can develop my people to a point where they can do what I can do and maybe even better. And I
mm,
decided that that was a better way for me to do that role. And as I moved into that kind of capability development role, I just kind of I reawakened that, and I realized that It really doesn't matter what I say when I'm in front of the group. If their leader doesn't buy in, if their leader doesn't know how to reinforce it, that
Mm,
seemed to be the magic piece. So it really just kind of awakened in me that that's my job, to develop the leader to do what I was doing, rather than, my being the sage on the stage, or my having some brilliant things to say to these executives. How could I develop their leader to do what I could do even better, because they understand the business better than I ever would. And
yeah,
so that's what helped me with that transition. And like I said, I'm having greater impact today than I ever could have had as a senior vice president of sales.
I love that. Let's dive into Kiln Global Coaching and Consulting today and what that looks like. So you work with execs, CEOs, senior leaders. What would you say is the core offering? What does it actually look like to work with you?
Yeah, yeah. So my passion, the thing that gets me excited is executive coaching. I love working with executives, helping them gain clarity around their most important initiatives, their most important priorities, and then work through what it takes in order to actually be successful accomplishing those goals. As an offshoot to that, at times I work with their executive team. I'll work with small groups. Yesterday, I did a program for 60 of this organization's middle line leaders, and they're wanting me to do more things with their larger organization. So I will do all of those things. I've got a podcast where I can talk to, thousands of people at a time. But my real passion is getting really, really deep with whoever the leader is, whoever the manager is, whoever the CEO is, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to continue whatever it is we decide on. They're the ones that have to make it happen. I really try to resist being the sage on the stage, namely because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I mean, I'm comfortable in front of an audience. I can do some pretty cool things, but at the end of the day, it's about sustainability. What's
Mm,
going to happen once I leave? And if I haven't equipped the leader to do the things that's really going to matter, thank you for the check. I'll take it, but you're not going to get the returns that we were both hoping for.
100%. And that's Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast, right?
Yes, yes. So, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast, that is my current podcast. It's actually my second podcast. The
Oh,
first one is called Leadership Toolbox. And I created that when I was still in corporate America. And I created it because I just enjoyed listening to podcasts. It seemed fun, it seemed easy. Wanted to see if I could do it.
mm,
And I launched it. And I think I got maybe 60 episodes. Maybe there's 500 downloads to date, and I'm convinced that my mom probably generated 300 of those, because it's inspirational, motivational stuff. Quite honestly, it's the kind of things that you might want to hear from an executive who's not trying to get fired from his corporate job. And that's what it was. And I had a very personal, a very enlightening conversation with one of my newer mentors. I was doing some work for her and for her organization. And she said, hey, Galen, you got some talent, you got some good things, but I sense that you're holding back. I sense that
mm.
there's something that you're reluctant to share. And I don't know you well enough to tell you what it is, but whatever it is, I want to invite you to bring that into the second part of this program that you're doing for us. And I was polite. Thank you so much for the feedback. But then when I hung up the phone, I was like, this lady don't know me. How dare she? My ego kind of puffed up.
Yeah.
And then I really started reflecting on the way that I had been successful in corporate America as a
Mm,
black executive was the ability to walk the line. I had to show enough to let people know that there was some talent there, but I had several instances where if I showed too much, people got nervous and people felt threatened. And that's the way I survived corporate America as a black executive. After that conversation, I decided, you know what? I'm not in corporate America anymore. I'm not trying to get my job back in corporate America anymore. And, I like whiskey, I like jazz, and I like leadership. And that's been the expression so far. Today, we've got over 40,000 downloads. We've got 7 seasons. Last year, we were acknowledged with 2 global podcasting awards, because I'm talking to leaders all over the world about what they think it really takes to be an effective leader. I think my audience can tell that I'm having fun, and it's more true.
yeah. The whiskey helps, I can imagine too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I'm super curious with the coaching side, is it like one-on-one or how long are we working together? What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. I will do shorter packages, but I've determined that the sweet spot is 6 months. It has to be 6 months
Okay.
of coaching because shorter than 6 months, you're still performing. You're still
Yeah.
trying to impress me. And I get it. Longer than 6 months, then we might be looking at, me enabling you, right? I'm creating dependency if you know that I'm going to be here
Mm,
longer than 6 months. Again, my focus is how do I get in, understand what your challenges are, give you the tools that you need in order to operate on your own inside your organization, do the kinds of things that you need to do. And then if after 6 months we're still talking about the same things, then I may not be the right coach for you because we're not making that progress. Now, if we
mhm.
work together for 6 months and you go off and you do some other things and you decide, hey, look, I'd really like to talk to Galen again about this other project, this other avenue. I've been promoted. I've got different responsibilities. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I've got some of those relationships. But if after 6 months we're still talking about the same challenges, I'm going to encourage you to find another avenue to
Yeah.
to address those goals. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to create dependency.
I like that. That's cool. That's cool. A lot of coaches will like, I want to have the client for life kind of thing, but then you're not really driving towards an outcome. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. My focus is, and this is the tagline for my business, how can we bake success in the leader's work in life? And the
Mm,
reason that that's important is because I don't care how good you think you are at compartmentalizing. If you're having a bad go at work, it's going to affect your home life. And
yeah.
if things aren't working at home, I don't care how good you think you are at keeping that private, it's going to affect how you show up at work. And so
For
we
sure.
blend all that together. The name of the business is Kiln Global Coaching and Consulting based on, the Kiln oven, which gets up to 3,000 degrees. Its sole purpose is to transition something from one state to another state. So it will melt steel so that you can mold it and turn it into something more functional, or it will bake pottery into ceramics so that it could be more functional. And I view that as the role of coaching. My job is to help you transition from one state to a more desirable state.
I love that. That's super cool. Now, let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. When it comes to customer acquisition, so I have a lot of coaches, consultants that listen to this. Lead generation is always, not always, but a lot of the times a challenge. When it comes to, marketing, lead gen, what do you do to bring on more clients?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really got a wake up call in the very beginning when I first started coaching after I left corporate America and did some other entrepreneurial things, I got certified as a coach. And if you had 50 bucks in a problem, you had a coach. So I had a lot of clients. I was doing a lot of work, but they weren't the right kind of clients for me.
Mm,
And quite honestly, I really wasn't generating the kind of money that I felt my services warranted. And so I got really, really clear on who are the kinds of clients that I should be working with. And so I built a filter around what that looks like. And the filter is really more for me than it is for the client, but it's a reminder of this is who I show up best for. Is this client that I'm talking to that person? And that was the first thing that I had to do as part of the transition. And then from there, I really decided that I wanted my business to be almost 70% a referral based. I'm not really
mm,
interested in having a whole lot of clients. I'm interested in having the right kind of clients where I can drive impact. Because if I have the right kind of clients and I'm driving impact, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their colleagues. The phrase that I'm shooting for with every expression is for this problem that you have, there's only one person on the planet that can help you, and that's Galen Bingham. That's what I'm
mm,
going for.
mm. So right now, it's the majority is referrals.
Yeah, it's majority is referrals, and I work for a couple of I do contract work for a couple of leadership development cadres, multinational cadres, that kind of thing. I do speaking engagements with the aspiration of getting them into a coaching relationship. The
Cool.
podcast is an example of that. The vision is, you listen, you tune into a podcast with whiskey in the title, and you hear me having a conversation with the current CEO of the Honey Baked Ham Company, or the former CEO of Anheuser-Busch, or the current group president for Hanes Innerwear, and you realize I've got a personal relationship with these people,
Mm.
and we're talking about the things that might impact their business. And it's my belief that when you're looking for a coach, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to Google me. And when you do, you're going to find these conversations, and it just adds to the credibility of what I bring. Plus, it doesn't feel like lead generation at that point. I'm having fun doing what I do.
Yeah, 100%. You would have probably had the conversation regardless. Why not record it and then use it as an asset?
Exactly. Exactly.
I like that. Do you ever see yourself running ads in the future?
I do run ads. I have run ads, and I've found that the ads are either so generic that they could be speaking to any coach. They could be speaking about any coach. You take my name out, you put someone else's name in, and the ad is just as effective. Or I found that they are so personal that they don't really talk about the impact that you have for the client, which is the focus. So I have done it. I will probably do it again. I'm in the process of writing my next book, and so I'll run ads for that. But right now, my focus is on how can I get really, really deep and have more impact, rather than having a lot of clients.
Okay, got it. So it's not really like, hey, let's get 10, 20 clients a month kind of thing. For example, it's more so let's get the right types of clients, the people that you do want to work with. I'm curious if you've thought about this because I know we personally do this, and I know a lot of people that do this very successfully. Is a very simple book a call funnel, but the ad is very, very specific and very targeted. So we talk to a specific person solving a specific problem in a specific way. And the goal of that is to get them to book a call on our calendar to discuss more. Now, for us, what we do is we add application grading, where basically we we have a series of questions that are methodical, and then based off of their answers, we grade the application, and we do it through 1 through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the fours and the fives are the best leads. And then we tell Facebook, like we have a pixel fire on those specific pages, send me more of these types of people that have reached this page, if that makes sense. I'm
Yeah, it
curious
makes a lot of
you
sense.
if you've thought about something like that, if that's something that you're thinking about or not
That's
really into.
that's not something that I've done. That is a fascinating idea, and probably something that I would get into.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely look into it. It's called the short form funnel, by the way.
Okay, fantastic.
Now, when it comes to the sales piece, do you have any advice for the coaches, consultants listening to this? When they're having the conversation with a prospective client, what is the best way they can get somebody across the line?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna borrow from some advice from one of my mentors, and the advice that they gave was add value. Add
Mm,
value. At every opportunity, add value. And if you're afraid that you're going to give away too much of your good stuff, then you probably need more good stuff. So add value. And so I look for that in my conversations with my clients. I will add value and usually make the point of, wow, we got from here to here in a 45-minute conversation. Just imagine if we were working together. What
mm,
what more could we do if we actually were working together? I don't understand your business other than the 45 minutes that we spent talking. Just imagine what we could do if we actually had a relationship. And that usually piques curiosity, but that only works if I actually added value. Because if I didn't add value, then, you know,
well,
there's nothing for me to put my hat on.
yeah, 100%. You can't really say, well, imagine, what, what we would do. It's like, oh, I don't really want to imagine that. No, that's awesome. I like that. Add value. Now, when you think of the future and you think of where you want to be, where you want the company to be, let's say 1, 2 years down the line, what does success look like for you personally and professionally?
Yeah. Great question. I would say that right now I'm really starting to get even more clear as to who I was put on this planet to serve.
Mm,
And one of the things that I've noticed, I've coached or advised or supported approximately 1,000 executives around the world, and less than 2% of my executives have looked like me. Less than
mm,
2% of my clients have been African American executives in corporate America. And I came to the realization about 6 months ago, I feel like I'm helping my clients understand the game, and I'm giving game to people who are competing against my younger self.
mm,
I'm making the road harder for my younger self. And so one of the things that I've created is a program called Vanta Elite, which is a by invitation only program for senior Black executives. And we focus specifically on the things that will help them achieve and accomplish whatever their goals might be. I'm literally sharing with them the things that I share with my Fortune 500 executives, but it's in a way that really speaks to the cultural impact, the cultural dexterity that you have to have in order to be a Black executive in corporate America. It's the things that I wish I had, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
boom. I love that. And then how can people sign up for that or get invited?
Yeah, the way that they get invited is they have to know someone who's been through the program, or they have to reach out to me.
Okay.
And we have to have that conversation about, do they have the mindset for what this is? Because this is not a general cattle call for any executives, for any executive who happen to be Black. You have to be at a certain level. You have to have a certain mindset. You have to
Mm,
have a certain aspiration, because it's not just individual coaching. There's a group coaching, a mastermind element to it as well. We're really pouring into those executives. I've also determined through research that 29% of all Fortune 500 executives either have had or have access to an executive coach.
mm,
If we go back to the math, 2% of my 1,000 executives have been Black. I'm trying to find a way to give my former self, my previous self, my younger self access to this thing that seems to be a missing piece.
yeah, I love that. For anybody who's listening, what is the best way for them to reach out to you to work with you?
Yeah, so lots of different ways to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, killglobalcoaching.com, KILN, globalcoaching.com. But the best way and the most fun way to get a hold of me is to search for Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership on every podcast platform. I guarantee you that if you try us just once, you're going to get something that's going to help you get to the next level. And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And then we also have a VIP community for our podcast. But don't think less of me. We're only charging $4 a month to be a VIP. And with that, you get access to extra content. You get access to me to a certain degree. And that's the best way to kind of taste the product and see if it's something that you really wanna dine with.
Awesome. I love it. What is the, or do you have any final words? Let's say you were talking to somebody who's just thinking about starting off in the coaching space. They have great experience, they know they can crush it, but they're just starting off and they really want to get their first few clients.
Yeah.
What would you?
I would encourage that, contrary to what I did when I first started, I would encourage that they go get certified training on what it's like and what it is to be a professional executive coach, because it has really nothing to do with your advice. It has nothing to do with your experience. It has everything to do with your ability to make people feel comfortable enough to guide them through the process of solving their own problems.
Mm,
Contrary to what my mom might think, I'm not necessarily the smartest dude on the planet. My job is not to be brilliant. My job is to tap into the brilliance that you have and guide you along the way of solving your own problems and doing it in a way that's sustainable. So my encouragement would be to make sure that you've got professional certified executive coaching training.
awesome. Galen, thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Time. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to kilnglobalcoaching.com. That's KILN globalcoaching.com. And also make sure to check out the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business, you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with our team and discover how we were able to go from zero to $30 million per year in less than 3 years. Until then, keep on climbing.